Welcome back. All right, so we're talking about teams that have missed the playoffs, right? And I'm gradually working my way up the standings. The fourth video in this series, we're going to talk about the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, the Flyers, whether they were going to or not going to make the playoffs, was a topic of discussion before the season started. There were some that thought, nope, they're not going to get any better. There were some, myself included, that thought, well, they're usually in the playoffs every other year. Why not? In the end, they don't get better. In the end, it really is not a good season by any stretch. And again, this to me felt like a season that was a complete disaster. They finished the season 25, 46, and 11. They only win 20 in regulation out of 82 games. So there's a lot here to unpack and more than one might think. So I know that by the way I title these, that people are like, well, of course they missed the playoffs. Look at the record. It's not the point. The point is, you kind of go through these teams and the regular season they've had and figure out where it went off the rails and how you might be able to fix it. Some of these teams are going to need major work and some not so much. So which side is Philadelphia on? It certainly seems like they've decided that things need to improve, and so they're willing to move like Claude Giroux and see what they can get back, that kind of thing, and they did, and we'll see how that all turns out. But there are some other moves like the extension for Ristolainen, which stands out as a curious move on Philadelphia's part, right? But they never had a healthy defense all year either. So the key date for them was December 6th. That's when they fired Elanvino, and that was during a 10-game losing streak. So that's when we knew things were bad. That 10-game losing streak absolutely annihilated their season. From November 18th till December 8th, all losses. I don't think they were all in regulation, but still quite the losing streak there for Philadelphia. Their goal scoring, 210 goals for, that's 31st in the National Hockey League. Their goals against, 294, that's 27th. That means they allowed 84 more goals than they scored. That's about one a game. It's not a recipe for success. And so for Philadelphia, there's a lot of work to be done. Special teams, same thing. Their power play ends up last in the league at 12.6%. Rough season or not, this team shouldn't be that bad on the power play. Penalty kill, 75.7%, that's 26th. So the league this year, the penalty killing takes a bit of a drop. The power plays got better. Those, of course, are tied to one another. They have to be. That's how percentages work. But for Philadelphia, their power play actually got worse, and their penalty kill was still nowhere near the league average. So Philadelphia, rough year. How did we get here? Month by month gives us a good idea. They were 4-2-1 in October. I thought they were playing well. They had some tough challengers and opponents in the month of November. They ended up finishing 4-6-3. But coming out of that month, they're 8-8-4. And again, it had been a really tough schedule. And they had the toughest schedule. I think it was the first 10 or 15 games. They had the toughest schedule of anybody in the league. But then things got easier, and they didn't play better. December, they're 5-4-2. Again, there's a 10-game losing streak in here, and they still end up right around 500. Now, it's NHL 500. It's not your real 500. But they don't really drop like precipitously until we get into 2022. In January, they're 1-10-2. So that's your miserable month there. That, of course, is with Mike Yeo behind the bench. Mike Yeo, we know, is not coming back next year. And so the debate will be one of, so how many members of the coaching staff, how many members of the organization do you need to replace to shake things up? February, they were 2-4-2. March, they were 5-9. And then in April, they were 4-11. So 4-4-5-1-2-5-4. That adds up to not enough wins to get anywhere near the playoffs. It was pretty much a season to forget the whole way through for Philadelphia. But again, I thought they played well against some tough opponents to start the season. And then here we are. We're looking at a team that's nowhere near the playoffs. So their top producers is also interesting because Konechny's their number one point producer, what with Giroux being gone and all. 79 games, 16 goals, 36 assists, 52 points. And yet Konechny has been quoted as saying that he wasn't happy with the season he had. He wasn't happy with it in general. And here we are. Cam Atkinson, 73 games, 23 goals, 27 assists, 50 points. I think he was a good addition. I do think they missed Voracek's passing out there. Absolutely. Not going to pretend they didn't. But I think Atkinson's goal scoring was appreciated on a team that did not score nearly enough goals. So Atkinson got off to a hot start, kind of cools off after that. There were injury issues as well during the season, but for Atkinson, I think it's possible he bounces back to a 30-goal form next year. James Van Riemsdyk, 82 games, plays every game, 24 goals, 14 assists, 38 points. So the point total, not exactly where you might want it to be, but the goals are still fine. And again, at this point in his career, Van Riemsdyk, power play, goals, he's able to do that. Play on the power play, get you some goals. The rest of his game, again, as players get older, sometimes you're looking at a guy who might be getting slower, and just the point totals end up dropping off. Joel Farabi, 63 games, 17 goals, 17 assists, 34 points. At times, Farabi can be absolutely fantastic to a level where he seems to be taking over a game by himself. And at other times, he can be kind of invisible, which for young players is not completely outside of the realm of likelihoods. And Kevin Hayes, only 48 games, 10 goals, 21 assists, 31 points. Not as effective this year for Philadelphia as in previous years, but being limited by injuries will do that. So they need a healthy Kevin Hayes next year. They need a healthy team in the first place. They also need a defense core that's able to stay together and to get some idea of what that defense is going to be able to do, right? And maybe that Ristolainen deal will look good once they have a healthy defense core and we know what they're dealing with. Their pending UFA list, there's some players on this list. There's nobody really key, though. So Nate Thompson's fourth line. If he wants to come back, I'm sure they'll find room for him. Keith Yandle, it looks like he's retiring. His last game of the year, there were some handshakes going on and whatnot, so Yandle may very well be retiring from the game. It would make some sense. His consecutive game streak is done. He may not be interested in, winding down his career, say a number 7 defenseman somewhere. He might be fine with going out as things are right now. Connaughton, serviceable depth defenseman, so is Nick Seeler. Jones is interesting in net. Martin Jones comes in from San Jose, played pretty well. His save percentage ends up being much higher than it was the last few years in San Jose. And so there'll be some interest if he hits the market, and I would think that he will. Sam Morin, I've put a asterisk next to Morin's name because it's already been announced that his career will not continue, that he's done as a National Hockey League player, that he'll be offered some kind of a role within the Philadelphia organization. So I wish him all the best with that. And it's too bad because we never really got to see what he'd be able to do at the NHL level. And then there's Sandstrom. So you've got Carter Hart under contract, and then the backup position's wide open unless they find a way to bring Jones back next year, or Sandstrom. Sandstrom played okay in call-ups. So at this point in time, I would think Sandstrom's either going to end up getting that offer for some sort of an NHL contract, where it should be a one-way contract, he should be getting paid, or he probably ends up going to Europe if that doesn't happen. But again, we'll see what Philadelphia does with basically their whole roster, right? And then, to me, the biggest question mark I have with this team, outside of who's going to coach this team, is, are we looking at a retool or a rebuild? Are the Philadelphia Flyers so fundamentally broken that they're going to have to be torn down to their foundations and rebuilt? Are there even younger players that they might decide, you know what, we'll move guys? Like Konechny coming out and saying, I had another down year. He had a down year last year as well. Maybe his name ends up being out there. I think there's going to be a lot of speculation around the Philadelphia Flyers, and we'll see how that all goes, right? So for the Flyers, it'll be interesting to see what they do with their roster, what the plan is. Again, the selling off of Giroux was more out of necessity than anything else. And then you see how well Giroux is playing for Florida. That's always telling, too, is does a player get better when he goes somewhere else, when he leaves that city? That can be an indicator of when things are just kind of, I don't know if depressing is the right word, but when an organization kind of doesn't make its players all that happy at that point in time. I know I've seen players leave Vancouver and go somewhere else and end up quite happy where they go. You can tell right away, you're like, okay, you could stop outwardly being so happy and smiling all the time, because it really makes it feel like it was miserable in Vancouver. And I mean, maybe, yeah, but could you hide it? So again, for Philadelphia, do you see this as a retool, which would be like 2 or 3 years, they're back in the hunt? Or does this team have some fundamental break where they need to absolutely tear it down? And if you do, if you've got a team that's got 25 wins this year, is tearing it down really that scary? Or again, are they in a position where this record was adversely affected by a lot of factors and next season they could get better? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.